Okay, just a highlight of what we did last time. Can you see the screen?
I'm seeing it now.
Okay, no, the last time we talked about what host is, what peripheral, what media is, and this network devices are. Now, we stopped at this place where we talked about cables and wireless.
Yeah.
Now, on this particular one, I said that example of this one is a hubs. When I mean hub, hub, switches, switches, and routers. So I'll be dealing with these ones today, these three things today.
Okay.
Now, on a very short note, I want to show you how switches look like. Let me say switch. I showed you the other time.
Yeah.
So it's supposed to be network switch. Network switch. Okay, these are the pictures of network switches and routers. Routers and hubs. Network hub. Okay, now just look at the picture of these are the way hubs looks like. It has ports, numbers. It has ports around it. Just as switch, it has ports. Can you see my screen?
Mm.
So these are the
I can see
hubs.
it.
Okay, you see even hub, switch, and router. I will need this picture. I need this picture. Open image or save image as topology. Sorry. Okay. Now, this router, example of router, but this router, you can see it, they have AP as an access point. You see this antenna, they are used for the access point. But this is not the router that we'll be dealing with in this course. It's not the main router that we'll be dealing with this course. The router that we are dealing with this course, they do not have um, access points. So those kind of antenna them. So let me put
Okay.
Cisco router. Cisco router. Better that way. But these are the routers you can actually see in markets, local markets. Okay, so waiting for it. This one is switch. Switch used to have good number of ports. You can have 8 ports, 16 ports, 24 ports, 48 ports, and
Okay.
so many ports. So this is just the image of switch, the way it looks like. But these switches that you're looking at right now are referred to as layer 2 switches. I'll talk about more about that.
Hello?
Layer, I said these switches you are looking at now, they are more of layer 2 switches. They are called layer 2 switches. Maybe I need to show you what layer 3 switch is. This route, the Cisco router, see the way it looks. Although there are some Cisco routers that are wireless, that have AP, but majority of the can you hear me?
It is breaking.
Okay, because of
Your voice is
network.
breaking.
It was network. I think you are back now. You can hear
I'm
me
back, but
clearly.
I can't see the screen anything on the screen.
Okay.
I can hear it, it's still breaking small, small.
Okay, let me share the screen still. Okay, you can see the screen now.
I can see it now. Yeah.
So this is the way a router looks like. I just browse online. Now, you need to know about what we refer to as network switches, as in layer 3 switches. Oh, sorry, I'm coming. Layer 3 switches. Layer 3 switches. Image of layer 3 switch. Layer 3 switches can function as both switch and as a router. But this is a layer 3 switch. Layer 3, this is layer 2 switch. Layer 3 switch, they're always big. Okay, this is layer 3 switch. Layer 3 switch. Though when you see one, it will be written. But just know that layer 3 switch has a very fast switching capability. And they can do routing work, not just switching. We'll talk about that one later on, how to use layer 3 switch. But back to what we are dealing with today, hub, switches, and routers. I'll be taking them one after the other. I've shown you their pictures, pictures of each of them. Now, I want to explain their functionality. Now, this is a hub connected to a network with other hosts. You need to know one thing, that hub is no more in market. You cannot
I
even
wanted to ask that.
Yeah, you can't even see hub in market because it operates with old technology that is not really applicable now. It's not even need for now. There's no even need for you to go and buy hub, even if it's in market. So I want to explain to you how hub function. Now look at hub as it is connected to a network like this. Whenever you connect a hub like this, and look at this is a source, and this is a destination. As in, what I mean source, I mean this guy H2 sends message. When he sends message, the computer or the host that sends message is referred to as the source, while the one that receives is the destination. Now, in a network like this, when this source sends message to destination, when it gets to hub will broadcast the message to all the active ports. When I mean all active ports, I mean all the ports connected to the hub. Like now, this hub can be, say, 16 ports, but it's connected to how many ports? One, two, three, four, five, six, 7, 8. So active ports on this hub is 8. So whenever anything comes to hub will broadcast the message to all the active ports. That's the now outside where the information is coming from. So if this computer send message to this particular one, what will happen is that when it gets to hub will broadcast the message to this guy, to this guy, to this guy, to this guy, to everybody. So all of them will open the message and ignore it. Like you see that this guy ignored it. This guy ignored the message. This guy ignored the message. This one ignored. All of them ignored. But the person that has the message will accept it. So that's the way hub works. It broadcasts the message to all the active ports outside where the message is coming from. No, the message is coming from this port. So it's not going to send the message back to the source. That's number one. Now, another thing that hub does, or one of the characteristics of hub is that when, for instance, let me see if I have a picture of that. No. Hub and switch. I'll come back to these ones. Now, let me still use this one. When H2, for instance, I better use. Okay, let me use this. Okay, better. When H2, H1 is sending message to H7, and H5 is sending message to H3. Can you see what I'm doing on the screen?
I can see it.
Hello?
I'm hearing you. I can see it.
Okay, now, if this message now hits this place, enters this hub, and this one will enter here first, Abi. The one coming from H5 will enter here before we now pass through here. If for any reason, when message enter here, another message enter again, there will be a collision. What I mean is that whenever two messages enter the hub at the same time, the message will collide. Now, just as this one, if this guy send message and this guy send message, and peradventure the message enter hub at the same time, the two messages will collide and become corrupt. Now, even at the fact that the messages has become corrupt, the router will still forward the corrupt messages to all the active ports, apart from where they were coming from. Do you get?
Yes, sir.
So now these are one of the characteristics of hub. And one more thing is you need to also know is that router and switch, that is router and switch has, okay, router and switch have a memory called, they have two memories. One, they have RAM. They have RAM. You understand what RAM does? Even in system, RAM is random access memory. It just keeps the activities of what is happening on the system in real time, but it doesn't store it. As soon as there is any, when the system restarts, everything wipes out. Now it has also what we call NVRAM. NVRAM. You know, in your system, in your computer system, when you are typing anything, if, for instance, you are using a desktop, if something happens that maybe you're not using UPS and as you are typing and light goes off, all those things you typed will got wiped out. Why? Is because you didn't save it. And whenever you save, it stays on the hard disk. You understand? It stays on the hard disk of the system. Now, the same thing is applicable with hub and switches. They have two memories. You know, your hard disk is a memory as well. Now, it has a RAM and has NVRAM. So NVRAM is non-volatile RAM. Non-volatile RAM can be likened to hard disks, can be likened to be the hard disk of the device. So when you save any configuration on switch or router, they all stay here on the NVRAM. But if you don't save it, it stays on the RAM. So whenever something goes on, maybe if you restart your switch or your router, everything wipes out. Why? Is because what you are doing, configuration is on the RAM. So when you finish doing anything on the RAM, you want it to stay on the NVRAM, you have to save it. Now, hub do not have any memory. No memory. It doesn't have any memory. No memory. So you just need to know about that. These are one of the differences too. No memory in hub.
Oh,
That is maybe one of the reasons why it behaves the way it does.
because
Now that's one. Let me explain switch. I'll still come back to hub. Now, but switch do not behave like hub. When a source is sending message to a destination, the message goes straight to from the source to the destination only on one condition. The condition is that the switch ARP table, there's something we call ARP table. ARP table. ARP table. So on the condition that the ARP table of the switch is filled up. Now, this ARP table also contains MAC table. But what you're looking at the board now is a MAC table. Okay, now I'll explain this. What I need in ARP table is already here on the MAC table. Now, what switch does is that when all the hosts are connected to the switch, the ARP table is blank. Can you see hear me? Hello? Hello, can you hear me now?
hello.
Can you hear me now? Okay, network
Yeah.
went off before. So now the switch has ARP table, and that ARP table stays on its memory. Now, whenever you connect your hosts all together, the ARP table is always blank. That is, it's not filled up. Now, we switch will now take time to fill the ARP table. How does it fill it? Now, when H1 wants to send message to, for instance, H7, it will now ask switch, who is H7? Now, switch will now check in its ARP table. I will now discover that H7 is not recorded in its ARP table. Now, look at the example of ARP table, the MAC table inside the ARP table. This is a port 1, fast Ethernet 0. Are you still there? Hello?
I'm there. I can't see anything on the screen.
Okay, I can see that. Come in. Okay, you can see the screen now, right? Okay. Now, as I was saying, you see this switch now? Can you see my cursor? This switch has how many ports?
Yes, I can see.
About 16 ports. Maybe this one is port 1, port 2, port 3, port 4. Maybe fast Ethernet 0/1, fast Ethernet 0/2, 0/3, and all of that. So when you connect a particular one to a device, the switch will now be taking note of where each particular port is connected. Now, you see this. This is a MAC address of the host connected to that port. I'll talk more about MAC address. MAC address is just a unique address that comes with a system from the manufacturer. It's about 48 bits. Then the 3 times 8, 24 bits of it is unique. And you just need to read up all those, but I'll talk about a little bit about what address are. We have MAC address, we have IP address. MAC address is a unique address assigned to a host on the network card or network port from the manufacturer, and it cannot be changed. Why IP address is logical address that you assign as an IT person, either dynamically or statically. We'll talk about more about that. Now, if on my system I want to see the MAC address of my system, I just need to do this. IP, I'll talk about this. I'll teach you what I'm doing later on. But I just want to explain what MAC address is. MAC address, when you look at what I have here on the screen, we have wireless LAN. I can use wireless LAN to connect wirelessly. I can use Ethernet adapter to connect using cable. I have so many other Ethernet adapter. But the one I'm using right now is this particular one on local connection 4. Now, the MAC address of this Ethernet adapter I'm using is this. MAC address is always specified as physical address. Look at it. 1, 2, 3, about 12 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times 2. 12 digit alphanumerical alphanumericals. And they are 48 in number. As in, they are 48 bits. Now, the first 3 are unique and all. I'll talk about more about this later on, but you just know this is MAC address. Now, also, MAC address of my wireless is, see it here, physical address. Look at it. C8 and all of that, and the rest. So now, if I'm connected to a switch, what the switch will record in its ARP table is going to be this, because this is the one I'm using to connect to the switch. BAEA and all of that and all of that. So now, this system now, see the MAC address of it, assumedly. See the MAC address, sorry. This is MAC address. And it's connected to fast Ethernet 0/1. Now, maybe H2 is connected to fast Ethernet 0/2 and see the MAC address. Now, I'll be talking about fast Ethernet and Giga Ethernet and all of that. These are just, fast Ethernet is a type of port that can condone or allow bandwidth of 10 Mbps to 100 Mbps. So this is the maximum size of fast Ethernet. Why Giga Ethernet port can take from 1000 and above. Can take up to 1000. That is Giga Ethernet. And Giga Ethernet, they are always specified. Look at as this switch are now. Giga, can you see the screen?
Yeah.
Now, most of the times, this place now, if you can see my cursor, can you see my cursor? Can you see this cursor now? Yeah, this particular place, they are always fast Ethernet. Why these two are Giga Ethernet? You use these two to connect to another network device or connect to a server. You know why we use this to connect to another network device or a server? Because, let me show you, I downloaded something before. Where is it? I downloaded something before. I downloaded something just now. Oh, maybe I don't know where it is, but where is, if I can locate that thing I downloaded, I don't know whether it's here. Maybe I need to use that to explain something to you. I don't know, I can't find it. Okay, look at it now. You see this switch? It's not giving me what I want. Maybe I use this one. Okay, now, you know that this is a switch. This is another switch. And this switch can be up to like 64 ports or 200, so many ports. And now, if I'm connecting these people to internet, I will connect from modem, from that router. This is actually a router. This is a picture, symbolizes router. I connect this router to a modem. and from our modem, they'll now go to internet. So anybody that wants to go to internet, if this guy wants to browse, it must flow through this. If this guy wants to browse, it must flow through this. If this guy wants to browse, it must flow through this. You could imagine that there is so much happening here. There's almost much traffic happening here. Now, it is not advisable for you to use fast Ethernet to connect. It's not advisable for you to connect this port on a fast Ethernet. Why? Because here is fast Ethernet. Here is fast Ethernet. Here is fast Ethernet. You could imagine maybe they're up to 64. And you see allow about 100 Mbps coming from here, 100 here, 100 here, and about 24 times to be passing through here is not wise. So in that case, you connect here to Giga Ethernet. Most times, this particular port is always fiber, or as it was as when I showed you. Now, the same thing applicable here. You're supposed to connect here to the Giga Ethernet. And if you have a server, maybe you have a server, this place is supposed to be on Giga Ethernet. Why? Because a lot of people can be accessing the server. A lot of people can be accessing. So you need to increase the bandwidth for them. This is almost like water. For instance, if I have a tank here, I have another tank here, and I have small pipe, about 64 pipe, filling this tank, and I want to transfer water from this tank to this tank. It's not wise for me to use the same size of cable, the same size of pipe to this place. Instead, I'm supposed to increase the size so that if this guy is pouring water, this guy is pouring water, this one is pouring water, the water will balance by flowing through this one. But if I'm using small pipe, the water will get full and start overflowing. That is just the same idea that we applied here. So you're supposed to use Giga Ethernet here and all of that. So I just explained to you what the essence of Giga Ethernet and a fast Ethernet. You understand?
Mm.
Okay. Now back to what I was talking about. Fast Ethernet. We connected this thing to fast Ethernet and all of that. Now, switch will take time to fill its ARP table. Now, first, since the ARP tables are blank, it will start filling it. So when H1 wants to send message to H7, it will now be asking who is H7. Normally, when you set up a network like this, they'll have IP addresses. They will assign IP addresses, but before they will communicate, they need to fill up their frame. I'll talk about frame later. It's after this, I'll talk about frame. Now, this guy will now be asking who is H7. So when he sends that message to the switch will now broadcast the message to everybody. So I send the message to this guy, send message to this guy, send message to this guy, and everybody asking who is 7. So everybody will now ignore the message. So it's only 7 will now say, oh, I am 7. Now when H1 is asking who is 7, H1 will introduce itself in the message, saying, just as when you are writing a letter to someone, you write your address and all of that, sending to. Maybe the person that is the postman that you will be sending your letter will know where the message is going to. But inside the message, you introduce yourself so that when someone is reading it and all that. So the same thing is applicable here. When H1 is sending message asking who is 7, inside that message, it will introduce itself. So what switch will do is that switch will open that message, ask where the message will now be who is C7. I'm like, okay, it will now store the information about H1, which is this. And when 7 now say, oh, I am Mr. 7, then switch will now record information about 7. You see it here. So this is the way switch fills its ARP table. Now, switch knows about this, it knows about that, it knows about this. Now, if, for instance, this 3, okay, let's say 3, is asking who is H7. When it's asking which is will now pass. When switch gets the message, switch will now behind the scene record the information about H3. Since it knows about H7, it will not ask who is H7 again. Do you understand? What we do is that we just send 7 is so and so. It will not send a message to H3 saying H7 is so and so because it knows about H7 already previously. Do you understand? Hello? Hello?
Your voice is breaking. I can't hear you. Your voice is breaking.
Well, can you hear me now? You can hear me now? I think it's network. Network is not too good. Okay, I believe you can hear me now. Hello?
I can hear you.
Okay. So,
I can hear you.
okay, maybe because network is back. So, the only way switch records the ARP table is when someone is asking about another person. Switch will do behind the back, record the message, may record the information about the sender or the source. When the destination responds, it will still record the message, record the information about the recipient. You understood what I explained before about how switch fills its ARP table.
Yeah.
Okay, if you understand, I can still explain because I will ask you questions when we finish. So now, switch will broadcast the message if it's asking about who is so and so. And the broadcasting of message inside of switch is what we call flooding. We call it flooding. Flooding. That's flooding. So I can write so fast. So when switch broadcasts a message, we call it flooding. So the only reason why switch will not flood a message is if the information is already registered in ARP table. Like for instance, if H1 is asking who is H4, switch will now record the information about H1 and now flood the message to everybody asking who is H4. So H4 alone will now respond, I am H4. Then switch will now save information about H4 in its ARP table. Like that. Now, if H7 now is asking who is H1, for instance, switch will not flood the message. Why? Because switch already have information about H1 in its ARP table. So switch will just be like, oh, H7. So H1 is so and so. You understand? And you should know also that the hosts also have their own ARP tables. So they also fill their own ARP table. So when H7 gets information about H1, it will no longer ask who is H1 again, because it will not be filling its own ARP table. It will only asks again if it doesn't know about maybe H2. So now look at the MAC address table now. Everything is being filled up. So if H7 asks who is H2, switch will not broadcast the message or will not flood the message. You just send the message to H7 straight away because it has information about H2 already. Now also, if the ARP table is filled up and someone just came in, another host just came in, that host will stay for a while. If nobody communicates to it and it doesn't communicate to anybody, it will just voluntarily introduce itself to the switch. So switch will just fill its ARP table. That's another way switch fills its ARP table. Now, there is something also we call aging time. Aging is very important you know this. Aging time. Aging. Aging time. As in time, I mean time as in tick. Aging time. Aging time I will just describe what it is. Aging time is just the duration of time that switch can hold information of a particular host in its ARP table. But under default, it is 300 seconds. 300 seconds. It's very important you know this. It's very important as a network engineer. Now, if H1, now switch has information about all the hosts in this topology now. Now, if for any reason H5 did not communicate and nobody communicated to it within 300 seconds, switch will wipe out information about H5. It will wipe out this information. Do you understand? In such a way that any other person that wants to communicate to H5 will not ask who is H5. Switch will now be asking who is H5 again. So aging time is just the time it takes for the switch to keep the information about a host. That's the ARP information about a host in its ARP table. So that's that for switch. So when a switch has all the information about host, like when the ARP table is filled up, that's the only time that H1 can send message straight to H7 straight away. Source can send to this straight away without flooding. You understand? Now, collision also happen in switch. The way collision happen in switch is that if H1 is sending message to H7 and this H3 is sending message to H8, there won't be collision. If H1 and H3 messages enter the switch at the same time, nothing will happen. Why? Is because they have different paths they follow. Unlike hub, it doesn't matter where they are going to, where they are coming from. As far as two messages enter the hub at the same time, there must be collision. But it's not like that in switch. But collision also occurs in switch. Collision occurs in switch. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So collision occurs in switch, but on the interfaces, like all those ports that are connected, that's only place that collision occurs. So the only time possibility of collision to occur in switch here is if say H1 is sending message to say H7 and H5 is sending message to H1. Now maybe the time H1 is sending message is now enter here, and while H5 is sending message to H1, the message now jam here at the same time. That's only time collision can occur in switch. But it's not there's still a possibility that H1 will see send, I will now pass to H7 before H5 own will now come here. But only that if there is any time, if possibility that message now they come together at the same time here, there will be a collision. And switch do not forward a corrupt message as in from collision. It doesn't forward it, unlike hub. I talk about collision. Collision, a corrupt message is always less than 64 bytes. It's less than that. And any message less than 64 bytes is called runs. Runs. We have giants too. Giants are the ones that are greater than 122. No, 1522. No, sorry. 1518. I'll talk about this thing when I talk about frames. So the only time switch will not forward the corrupt message because it will know that it is less than this. And any message that is less than 64 bytes, switch does not forward it. So that's that for switch. So collision. So I need to bring up this thing again. It's, you can still work with it anyway. So collision only occur on the ports. I'm looking for my mouse. Okay. It can only occur on interfaces or ports. Now, the possibility of collision occurring on this particular switch is how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, right? That's a possibility, 8 possibility. But if it's hub, the possibility of collision occurring in hub is just 1. You understand? Anytime 2 messages come here, there will be collision. But in hub, it is not like that. So we call this, there's something we call collision domain. Collision domain is a place, just as the name domain, you know, is an English word. Domain is where something can occur. It's an area, kind of, or the scene. So collision domain, when you say collision domain, it is where collision can occur. Where collision can occur. So in this kind of switch now, the collision domains, the number of collision domains we have in this switch is 8. Of course, I will explain why. These are places where switches, collision can occur in switches. Yes. So in this switch now, we have 8 collision domain. Why in hub?
Just 1.
It's only one collision domain. No matter the number of ports that hub is only always 1. And the switch is according to the number of connected ports. So look at this place now. This switch now, how many collision domains do we have here on this switch?
Yes, 8.
Plus 1, plus this particular one. That is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, plus this. So all the connected ports are collision, are counted as one of the part of collision domain. But why in this hub is only one collision domain? So maybe from what we've done so far, now let me summarize. If this is source H3 is sending message to H1, the way message will go is that message will go from here and get to the hub. And hub will now broadcast the message to all the active ports. That means H1 will receive the message, H2 will receive it, H4 will receive it, and all the ports, even this switch will receive it. So switch will now receive it and forward it to that. Then this one will now forward it to this. Only if can you hear me? Okay, you can hear me now.
Hello?
Yeah, you can hear me now because of network. Network was bad before. You can hear me now, right? Yeah?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. Yeah. So I said before, I was explaining before, if this source H3 is sending message to this destination, message will go to the hub. Hub will now broadcast the message the normal way we always do. And all the ports, active ports will receive the messages. Why this switch will receive it and forward it here. Then this one will now receive and forward it to the owner, the direct owner. Now, why switch will do that? This switch 2 will do that is because switch 2 has the ARP table already filled up. If it's not filled up, it will not ask who is H1 and all of that. You understand? So that's that for collision and switch functionality and the hub. So can I ask you a question for what I've done so far? Can you see my battery?
Battery?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. I may not sleep because I just charged this because of our meeting. I'm going out to charge it again. I'll call you back again because of
Okay.
issues we have recently. So
Okay.
now,
Although I don't have something to say actually.
okay, hold on,
You know, this.
hold on,
Okay.
hold on. So if H1, okay, let's say if H2 here wants to send message to H8, and this ARP table on this switch is blank,
Mm.
what will happen?
For the switch, right?
Yes, for switch 2.
Hello?
Yeah,
For the switch,
yeah.
it
If
needs to get the
H2,
information of the H8.
okay,
Hello?
yeah,
Before the information can be sent to, as which is to fill the ARP
okay,
table of H8
yeah,
before the message can get to the destination.
yeah.
If you don't get the information of H8, there's no way you can send messages to.
To
There's no way message can get from the destination to the H8.
okay, okay, fine. Okay, let me explain it. I want you to give me the explanation like this, the way I'm giving you now. Now, I'll ask you another question, but I will explain this one the way I want you to explain it. H2. Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, fine. So if H2 wants to send message to H8, and inside of this switch 2, the ARP table is blank, H2 will send a message asking who is H8.
Yes.
And switch will now broadcast the message to all the active ports. All the active ports. So this guy will receive it. Active port include this guy. This guy will still send.
Yes.
This guy will send it. And all of that. So the owner of the message is this guy. It's only this guy will respond. Every other person will ignore it. So now, when the response goes to H2, switch 2 now have two records now. Record about H2 and H8. Because when H2 is asking who is H8, switch will record information about H2. So I will ask you another question and I want you to explain it to me the same way I just did. Okay. If H3 is asking who is H4, how is the message going to go? Like if this ARP table is all filled up, why this one is empty? How is the message going to go? This guy is the source. This guy is the
H3 is the
destination.
source.
So how is the message going to go? Like there
The
is
message from
ARP table here, but this one is blank. So tell me how the message is going to move.
from the switch 2, right? H3
H3, yeah.
to send message to the switch 2.
Okay. Okay.
H8.
Please, can you say that again? I lost I lost connection.
And since if there is a message, as in send message to the switch to asking who is H8, as in all the ports connected to the switch, the message
Okay.
gets to them all.
Okay.
The H8 will now respond.
No, it's H4 that I'm asking.
I mean H4.
Okay.
Okay, H4, right?
Yeah.
H4 send message to the switch.
No, see the source here. This is this guy asking about this. But here, there is no ARP table. It's not filled, but it is filled here. So continue. How is going to move
the
from
message from here from H4 to the switch 2.
No, no, start from the beginning. How H3 is going to do it.
H3.
Yeah,
No,
start from H3.
the message from the H3 to the switch to all, send message to the switch. Then the switch now sends signal to all the ports connected to the switch.
Okay. That's switch 2.
As in, that's switch 2.
Yeah.
Connected, since this one is speed up now, it means that the message from the signal from the H3 will not go to the switch 1 again, because it's already speed up, which means that the destination point now is no longer in this other place.
Okay.
Then acting the switch 2, all the ports connected, the switch now acting all the ports connected to the switch, asking who is this person that, let me use person as an example.
Okay.
That who's the owner of this message coming. So H4 will now respond, whereby the details of the H4 will not be recorded in the ARP or MAC address table in the switch before the message can get to the H4.
Okay. Okay. I think I asked you a kind of a more complex question. Or maybe I didn't explain this kind before. You know that I said ARP table on this switch 1 is filled up. Why it is not filled up here?
Yeah.
You know, the only reason why switch will ask who, if someone asks switch, like if someone asks H2 asks who is H8, the only time switch will not ask who is H8 is if the ARP table of switch 2 does not contain information about this. That's only time switch will now be asking who is that. But if switch knows about H8, it won't ask anybody. And I'll be like, H2, see if H8 is so and so. You just send it to H2. You understand? Now, my question now, I ask if H3 is sending to H4. This guy has a complete field ARP table. Why this one does not? So the one that does not will now broadcast, right? Will flood. So when this message is asking, is sent to switch 2, sorry, asking, please, who is H4? Since this guy, this switch does not know about H4, it will not ask everybody, who is H4?
All the ports.
H4? Who is H4? And even ask who is H4. Now, this guy knows about H4. So he's not going to ask who is H4. It will just send H4 is so and so. You just tell this switch that H4 is so and so. So switch 2 will now record information about this H4. And now
straight from the switch 1.
Yes, from switch 1. Switch 1 can answer if he has, because it's already the ARP table is filled. Why this one is not? So as far as it is filled, anybody that asks, it will just supply.
Supply, okay.
Yeah, except it does not have, it will not ask.
It does not have. Okay, it doesn't have, it not ask the ports. Okay.
Yeah. So if I've explained this, now let me ask you another one. If H8 is asking of who is H3, when this guy does not have ARP table field, what will happen?
H8.
Yeah.
Hello?
Yeah, H8 is asking who is H3.
H8 asking who is H3.
Yeah.
And the switch 2 don't have.
Yeah, it doesn't have
information concerning
the ARP table, concerning the H3. Yeah.
And what about the switch 1 has?
Switch 1. Switch 1 does not have. Okay, switch 1 does not have. That's a nice question. It does not have.
Okay. Since it don't have.
And again, sorry, there's no how switch 1 will have. Why switch 2 will not? Because it's switch 2 that will give switch 1. Yeah. So there's still a possibility.
Both don't have.
Yeah, both don't have. Let's put it that way. Both don't have. So from 8 to 2, 8 is asking who is 3. Sorry. 8 is asking who is
3 from switch 2.
Yes, on switch 2. So what will happen?
Switch 2 will send a message to all the ports connected to it.
Yeah.
Both this switch 1.
Okay.
And the ports connected. The 8 send message to switch 2.
Okay.
The switch 2 now asks all the ports connected to it.
Okay.
Both the ports from the switch 1 to switch 2.
Yeah.
At who is this port? Who is this port that who is on this message?
Okay.
And since they don't have any record about them,
Okay.
since they don't have any record about all these ports,
Yeah.
it will now try to get their details.
They will ignore the message.
They will not in the message.
Yes, they will ignore it. But it's only H3 will respond. Because the message is addressed to
the rest will ignore.
Yes, the rest will
the
ignore.
address coming from there is not H7 or H2.
It's not for them.
H3 and the other H3.
Yeah.
The rest will know it's why the H3 will respond to the message from the switch 2.
Yeah. Yeah. But just this is kind of confusing, you know. This H3, let's put this one H3B, H3A. Sorry, it's kind of any number here is A. Any number here is B. So let's not confuse you. So that's the way it is. If 8, as you said, is asking who is H3, it will now enter the switch. Switch will now flood the message. Even this guy will get it. Everybody will get it. Everybody that gets it will ignore. This guy will ignore it. Even the message will come here and enter here. This guy will ignore it. Everybody will ignore the message. So this guy is the owner of the message.
Except H3B.
Yeah. Except even H3B will still ignore the message. So it's only
H3B.
Sorry?
It's only when it carries H3B.
Even H3B will ignore the message because it's addressed to H3A.
Okay, yes, it's not.
So it's only H3A that will now respond.
Yeah.
And this guy will now save information about H3 in his ERP table. And also save this one too. But for now, I'll call you back because of